Hello, everyone, and welcome to Comprehensive Community College Campaigns, Meeting Challenges and Ensuring Success. Community colleges serve 41% of all undergraduates in the United States, drive economic mobility, and often serve low-income adult and underrepresented students. However, they can no longer count on public revenue as they once could, and today receive less than 2% of the philanthropic dollars raised for higher education. In response, community colleges are mounting multi-million-dollar campaigns that were once the domain of more traditional four-year colleges and universities. I'm Laura Simic, Vice President with Grenzebach-Gleer, and joining me today are Dr. Kevin McCarthy, Executive Vice President for Institutional Advancement, and Vanessa Stolen, Executive Director of Advancement at Central Piedmont Community College in North Carolina. Central Piedmont is close to the successful completion of its $40 million Powering a Stronger Future campaign. And Kevin and Vanessa are here to shed light on the unique challenges of community college campaigns, solutions, and lessons learned. We are taking questions, and if you have a question, please type it into the Q&A using the button on the bottom of your screen. Answers will be posted on our website after the webinar. So hello, Kevin and Vanessa, and thank you for joining me. Would you start? Wonderful. Would you start by telling us a little bit about Central Piedmont and why so few community colleges have embarked upon campaigns like yours?
Sure. Vanessa, if it's okay, I'll jump in first. Laura, thank you for having us. It's a pleasure to be with you, and hello to everybody who's on the call today. Central Piedmont is located in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we've been here for since 1963. 63, 64 was our first year. We serve about 50,000 students a year. We are a multi-campus college. We've got 6 campuses which serve Mecklenburg County, our primary service area, and also have 2 satellite locations, one of which includes the local PBS television station. So we're fairly large, and our footprint is large across our service area, so which eases accessibility for students across our demographic. We're a fast-growing area. We were just talking about 160 people a day move to Charlotte now, so it's a fast-growing part of the state, and we've seen economic growth, corporate headquarters relocating here to go along with that population growth. So that's us in a nutshell. And Laura, I think you asked why comprehensive campaigns for us and maybe not for others.
Mm-hmm.
Since I've been here 17 years, and this is our 3rd comprehensive campaign in that time I've been here. Just looking at the landscape a little bit, and we wonder why sometimes as well. We are the only one of the few doing these comprehensive campaigns. If you look at other community colleges in North Carolina, I think there are a couple factors there. The staffing, as many of you may know, is fairly low in community college advancement offices, typically called the foundation office. We have a 501c3 foundation which accepts our gifts. Staffing those offices at many of our fellow colleges in North Carolina could be 1 or 2 people. The turnover in those offices as well seems to be fairly frequent, so there's not a lot of stability in our state in leadership in those offices. And then also, I think in North Carolina, we've had a rash of turnovers in presidential leadership at many of the community colleges in North Carolina. I think last year alone, there were 12 vacancies in the 58 presidencies in the community college system in North Carolina, so about 20%. So if you don't have that stability in leadership at the presidential level, you're not building those relationships, you're not planning long term. So I think those are a couple of things we've seen in our state where we operate that might be impediments to a comprehensive campaign. So Vanessa, I'm not sure if there's anything you'd like to add to that.
No, I think that about covers it. It's taking on a campaign like this is a huge undertaking, and you want to have the infrastructure, you want to have the experience and the know-how to organize it and to keep up with it. And the relationships are key. You've got to build those relationships and invest in cultivating and stewarding those relationships over the years.
Mm-hmm. Turnover of development officers certainly is and leadership certainly is a challenge in our profession across the sectors. As you prepared for Powering a Stronger Future campaign, in addition to that leadership stability, what other challenges did you face, and how did you meet those challenges?
Vanessa, do you want to take that one?
Sure. You know, Laura, you've lived in Charlotte, you know our nonprofit landscape is rich. So there's often a number of campaigns happening at one time, which makes this a fairly competitive marketplace for philanthropic support and campaign volunteer leadership. So that was one of the considerations that we took in, is who else was running a campaign, who else is on the campaign committee, who might we get to run ours, that type of thing. Engaging new donors. With a lot of folks moving to the area, coming in and out, we have a good, as one of our volunteers put it this morning, a good bench of solid donors that we've relied on for years, but you also want to grow that and build your prospective donors for your campaign. So looking at who we could engage and tell our story to. We're known, Central Piedmont is known by many, but very few folks know the breadth of what we do here at Central Piedmont. So telling our story and making sure that folks understand how deep we run with program support and workforce development in the area was another challenge and an opportunity for us. And while we have a good sized staff at the foundation, we have just 3 full-time fundraisers and 1 part-time plan giving officer. So, you know, balancing the workload with those folks and while we're doing everything else, you know, still running events and activities here at the college. That was a consideration for us.
Right.
Having anything I overlooked?
No, I think you're right, Vanessa, that the multiple campaigns that go on in Charlotte, we have a number of higher education institutions here and other nonprofits that seem to be constantly in the campaign mode. So how do you tell your story and differentiate from others is really important. We fight for leadership. People tend to tap the same folks for leadership roles. But I think, again, it comes down to how do you differentiate yourselves from others? How do you prove your value to the community? Something that occurred in Charlotte that was, I guess, serendipitous for our campaign as it was being launched was there was a study which showed that Charlotte was last among major metropolitan areas in the nation in terms of economic mobility. So meaning that someone who was born in poverty would likely stay in poverty. So terrible, news for Charlotte and for the folks in Charlotte in need. But for Central Piedmont, it really put us in a spotlight. A new appreciation for the community college and how the community college could bring its resources to bear to foster economic mobility. So that was something that really helped us tell our story in a better way, a more concise way, and increased appreciation for what we could do for the population of Charlotte. Something that we did as well about that time, we contracted with a group that is in Laura's part of the world, EMSI. It's a company that does workforce analysis. And what this company did for us was look at the economic impact of Central Piedmont on the community. It did an analysis of the workforce needs of Charlotte and matched up our programs with those workforce needs in Charlotte to demonstrate not only our economic impact, but our potential impact in filling employment needs of corporations in Charlotte. So again, that helped us prove our relevance and showed how we could be of value, not only in economic mobility, fostering that for the community, but also addressing those pressing employment needs of our corporate partners in Charlotte.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've raised more than 90% of your goal with just under a year to go, I believe. So it sounds like that you have been very successful in differentiating yourself in a way that really meets the need for your community and your region. What other factors do you think are contributing to your success, and where are your gifts coming from?
Well, I'll jump in real quick and then let Vanessa go, because Vanessa's really staffing our campaign committee. We have fantastic leadership. I think more so than any campaign we have undertaken. We've got the right leadership on our committee. We have fantastic tri-chairs that represent financial sector, construction sector, and who are very motivated, very tuned into the college's role and relevance. And typically campaigns, I would say, tend to be very staff-driven, and the staff shoulders from my experience, a heavy part of the load, as they should. This is a campaign where our committee, they're full partners with us. And they're very goal-oriented. They're very competitive amongst themselves. So, and we had a meeting this morning. So I think that has been a key to our success. And also, as Vanessa alluded to earlier, we've been successful in expanding our base. We've got, I believe, Vanessa, 1,300 new donors have become involved in this campaign, first-time donors to the college. So that's an important factor as well. So Vanessa, what else? Again, and you've done great work with that committee.
So, Laura, foundations, corporate partners, individuals, folks who are invested in improving our situation regarding economic mobility, workforce development, those are the folks who are supporting this campaign. And Kevin is spot on with regard to our volunteer leadership. They are fun, they are competitive with one another, they do bring expertise in a variety of industries to the table. They also represent both the college trustees and the foundation board. So three of our leaders are foundation board members, and then one is a trustee. So we've got representation on all levels. And you would even think during a pandemic, it would be challenging to start a campaign like this with a lofty goal, but because of the relevance and how people are seeing Central Piedmont poised to address that economic mobility, the economic mobility concerns for our city, people are finding Central Piedmont to be a relevant answer to that. So that's been something that we've been able to use to our advantage in terms of conversations with donors and raising money.
I can certainly see how the corporate community and the arts community would be very interested in that niche that you fill for the community and the larger reason. But you don't find good volunteers just overnight. They don't just land on your doorstep necessarily. How did you cultivate those volunteers to end up with that right group? And what else are volunteers doing for you in addition to the leadership of the campaign?
Kevin, would you like to talk about our board development and nominating process?
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a good place to start, Vanessa. And Laura, something we've done over the past number of years, we've expanded our foundation board. So our foundation board about 15 years ago was 12 members. It was the same size as our board of trustees. Our foundation board is now up to 37 members. So we dramatically expanded that, and it wasn't haphazard. It was intentional to make sure that we were bringing the right folks on, representing the various industrial sectors, corporate sectors, business sectors in Charlotte, so that we could expand our leadership pool, and our connectivity into Charlotte. As we're working to develop our alumni base and network, it's not the same as a four-year institution or university. We just don't have that. So that expanded foundation board has really filled in that gap for us and provided that pool of talent for our committees. As Vanessa said, our nominating process, selection process has been very careful and thorough, looking for folks who give us a key corporate connection, but also folks doing our research who have served in leadership roles at other nonprofits, who have been involved in campaigns at other nonprofits. So they bring that mindset, that expertise, experience to our board, and that's helped us considerably. And I think that dovetails into one of the first positions. Well, I say the first position that was hired about 15 years ago, as we were expanding the foundation staff, was a prospect research position. So, I mean, I guess my background is history. I'm a frustrated history teacher. So, you know, everything starts with research. If you don't know who your prospects are, who potentially can help you, who to go to, you're operating in the dark. So I think that position has helped us better identify people for board service. And then when they're on the board, when they're on our campaign committee, it better equips those folks to do their jobs as well. And again, we don't just have our board, we just don't ask them to raise money. We involve them in various ways on other committees, as mentors for students, those types of things, so they get to know the college and get involved in the college and get invested in the college. So the campaign service and asking others for money is just part of a broader service.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Laura, it's really fun to watch our board members and our donors connect with our students, because that's why we're at work every day, those students. But very seldom do our board members and our donors have that opportunity unless we make it happen. So the more often we can put them in the same room to hear a student's story firsthand, or to have a conversation with a student, a scholarship recipient, it really does help them connect with our mission and why it is they've signed on for this role. And then they can go out and tell that story. If you think about it, a lot of our donors, a lot of our volunteers probably have a 4-year college experience, may not know the community college student demographic very well. So again, the more we can put them in front of and to have a conversation with a student, the more they can understand all that our students are juggling in order to put education at the forefront.
Mm-hmm. I would imagine that some of our listeners, when you said you had a 37-member board, took a little gasp like I did, thinking that's a big board to manage. Yeah. But it sounds like you have been very strategic in bringing people onto that board. So you are cultivating that engagement and cultivating that ownership, more than just having a group that will govern the foundation, and it's working very well for you.
You can see that, Laura, when our board president issues a charge that we need to have 100% giving, that everybody needs to be coming onto the board ready to roll up their sleeves to open doors, make introductions, and support the work of the institution. So when that person takes charge of that and isn't assigned that or isn't scripted for everything, you know you've got the right person in that place.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So you mentioned expanding your donor base and that you have had success there. Has that been partially due to the expansion of that board and the deep ties that they have with the community? And what else helped you expand your donor base?
I would say, yes, that board has been very instrumental in that. They have enabled us to make connections to individuals, corporations, foundations in the community that we never had those connections before. So they have been very instrumental. Higher level gifts, mid-range gifts, I would say across the spectrum. So that's been great to see. The college also, we have our president, Dr. Deitemeyer, has been very intentional in marketing in the community. So there's been a marketing campaign in Charlotte that not fundraising focused, but to increase awareness of the college. That involves print, television ads, signage on buses, billboards, just to increase the awareness of the college, its mission, and the opportunities it offers. So I think that has benefited us, our campaign as well. So Vanessa.
I would just add that Dr. Deitemeyer is an exceptional fundraiser and an ambassador for Central Piedmont. So she serves on a number of committees and boards in our community. She's not shy in telling the Central Piedmont story. She understands community college. She's a community college product herself. So she gets our students and where they're coming from. So she tells that story often. And like I said, to as many people as who will listen.
That's a wonderful partner to have. I've heard you mention several things that seem to be very relevant factors in your success: differentiating yourself, being relevant to your community, intentional cultivation of volunteer leadership, marketing, just the mission and the role of the college, and a president who loves to do it, and some leadership continuity in the development office, in the institutional advancement office. As you look at towards the final year of your campaign, what are your important lessons learned so far? And what are some of the things that you learned as you were going about putting in place these factors that have led to your success?
Vanessa, do you want to go first? I've taken all of them, so give you an opportunity. I should do ladies first, but I didn't do that. I apologize.
No, that's fine. You know, Laura, when I think about lessons learned, I think more in terms of lessons reinforced. You know, a lot of what we've already talked about here in terms of, you know, thinking about and being intentional with your volunteer leadership and recruitment. Your research that you do, your communication within your team and through, you know, through your volunteer leadership, telling your story, you know, having a good story to tell, making sure you've got all that lined up, being organized. That's a real key factor. And it's like Kevin said, staffing, our leadership for the committee. I think those are all important things. You know, one of the things I like about my relationship with Kevin is, you know, he's kind of about the data and I'm about the heart. So blending, having a really good blend between the heart and the head, you know, for the campaign, the data, as well as the stories, and making sure that you tell those. And because not everybody makes a decision based on their emotions, and not everybody makes a decision based on the facts and the figures. So you got to be able to present those in your story and present those well for people to consume. And so I think working together, you know, collaboratively in that way has been really, it's meant a lot to me, and I think it's been beneficial to the campaign.
Wonderful.
Well, as the heartless one here, I would say.
No, I would be headless, so that's not right.
I would say, kind of touching on what Vanessa said, I would say, you know, there are no shortcuts. You know, you have to do the work, and you know, from that plan giving perspective, annual fund perspective, you have to be doing the work, and continuity is so important so that you can have consistency in relationships with people. Something that, you know, I think proves that out. I'll just careful how I say this, but the college will soon realize its largest individual gift in its history.
Wow.
And that, so I'm giving you a preview, and you're all sworn to secrecy, but that'll happen soon. And the reason that came about was because a staff person here has worked with that donor for 20 years. From an annual, taking that person from an annual fund donor up through a mid-level donor to a major gift donor, and getting that person to that point. And there are no shortcuts there. So again, I think continuity is so important in consistency in messaging and as you mentioned, Laura, staffing folks and those relationships to make them comfortable with giving their resources to an institution. They have to have that confidence that, as you know, you have to touch something in their heart, as Vanessa said, but you know, from that head standpoint, am I giving it to a sound institution? Are those funds going to be well used? Do I have faith in those people who are there? Whether it's the president, it's that development officer I'm working with. What's my comfort level? And again, you can't fool a donor, a sophisticated donor, or if you fool them once, you're never going to see him again. So again, I think doing your homework, consistency in relationships, and you know, again, I think colleges, especially as you mentioned, community colleges that are serving over 40% of all college students, need to invest the resources needed to keep staff in place, so that there is that consistency, that expertise, where you can get to know your donors, your community. That's so important. And particularly if you're looking at the decrease in public funds, I think we in North Carolina community college receive 50%, maybe a little less now from the state. So if you look at that 15 years ago, or when it was 70%, 75%, where are those other dollars coming from?
Right.
So they have to come from somewhere. So your ability to raise those dollars is more important than ever, and I think more than justifies an investment in development staffing. So.
I'm so glad to hear you say that, Kevin, and to talk about continuity and there being no shortcuts. You know, we as development professionals, you know, understand how important the relationship building is, and the building of trust, and that donors who make significant gifts do so on their timeline, not necessarily ours. And you know, we are so challenged with continuity and turnover. I'm so glad to hear you talk about how important that is. In our last couple of minutes, the takeaway that I hope our listeners get are the ones about relevance and continuity and doing the work. Are there other key takeaways you want to make sure that our listeners leave with today?
Vanessa, would you like to go?
I think what comes to mind first, Laura, is, you know, what we just touched on is trust. And those relationships with donors. We have high expectations for ourselves here at the Central Piedmont Foundation, high expectations that we meet donors' expectations, that when a donor calls, we respond. When a donor asks a question, we get them the information they're looking for. When a donor chooses to make an investment in our students through a gift here at the college, that we honor that. The intention of that gift, and that we steward that really well. So I think trust, those relationships, those are the things that mean a lot to me. Our relationships with our volunteers and how we nurture and respond to them and get them the information they need when they're representing us and being good ambassadors for us in the community. So in addition to what has already been said, I would just emphasize those aspects.
Thank you. Our 30 minutes has gone by very quickly. I would like to thank you and all of our listeners for participating today, and remind our listeners to don't forget to check our website for answers to questions. And to the two of you, in addition to my thanks, congratulations on the big announcement that you're about to make, and on the success of your campaign thus far. Again, thank you, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Laura.
Thank you very much.